Apparently our intro music isn't working today.
I can hear it.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's coming through on my end.
Well, hopefully everybody else can hear it. that picture. Alright, what are we closing? All right. Got another Friday Standdown going here. I'm sitting here in the barn down in South Texas. We got the intern drinking a chocolate milk stout at his apartment somewhere.
I think that's a very generous way to describe what this is.
It's not a chocolate milk stout?
It is not a stout. It is the Shiner S'more Chocolate and Marshmallow Ale.
Why do they make shit like that?
I mean, you got to be interesting these days when there's 18,000 different beer brands.
I think Shiner's seasonals have always kind of been a lot more miss than hit.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Well, looks like we closed the week under $100. Is that right?
Yeah, but I think oil equities, oil stocks were up for the most part.
Yeah, but I think everything's been pretty volatile with the Fed talking about their, more aggressive rate increases and all that bullshit.
Right. But it's, it's just interesting because it's like, commodities kind of across the board were up. So oil stocks had a good day. Maybe the market was just waiting for them to, leave Washington, get done with their dog and pony show on Capitol Hill.
Well, pretty wild that Europe is now starting to reopen and reinvest in nuclear. It was like 6 months ago they were shutting everything down.
Yeah, I guess maybe they've learned from the error of their ways.
Probably not. We got 90s on here. 90s, are you still down at the refinery, man?
Audio input settings.
Must be
strike again.
Must be still working. Or he's been drinking since 8 a.m. So there was some news about Alpine High that somebody was talking about. Was that earlier this week?
Yeah, so backstory on that. I know a lot of people have noticed it, those that pay attention to industry transactions, but Apache had created a midstream entity that was connected with Alpine High called Altus Midstream. Pretty much ended up being a big flop, obviously, because the gas volumes weren't there at Alpine High. So they ended up basically smashing it together with another Delaware Basin private midstream company that operates under Eagle Claw Midstream. There's some other technical parent company name. I think it's an ex Energy Transfer guy that runs it.
Eagle Claw sounds pretty fucking aggressive.
Yeah. So Eagle Claw wanted to go, I think just needed to get some liquidity, wanted to go public. So they essentially used Altus Midstream as a SPAC, more or less. And so now they have a kind of merged new midstream company. It's called something dumb like Kinetic Holdings or whatever. But buried in the fine print of the transaction was some language that basically said, the shares of the new company, Apache has whatever percentage ownership now. And essentially it was like either you hold the shares for like 3 years, or if, Apache decided to sell the shares before that lockup was finished, they had to invest they had a 2-year clock to invest a minimum of $100 million in Alpine High. So as soon as the new company started trading, I think Apache immediately dumped a big chunk of shares, which triggered that reinvestment clause. And I was out in Pecos in Reeves County the last couple of days and heard from a little birdie that some Apache connected brokers are out in the Reeves County courthouse doing some title checks, title updates, and I guess leasing the artist formerly known as Alpine High. Also heard from that same little birdie that they may or may not have gone and staked a well pad location out there.
Oh shit! Getting serious.
So, I joked with this person that $100 million is like, I don't know, what are they going to go drill, like 10 wells, I guess, or something? 15 wells, maybe. So it'll be.
I don't know. For Apache, that kind of sounds like maybe that's like 5 wells, right?
Right. So I guess it'll be interesting to see when that permit or permits pop up, and just kind of how they try to resurrect Alpine High.
I guess resurrect is a okay term to use, but was it ever really alive?
Rebrand, maybe?
Do you think that they're going to have the same person that did the initial Alpine High logo do the new logo?
No, because the person that commissioned and signed off on that logo no longer is an Apache employee, which would be the infamous Steve Keenan.
We should definitely team up with him on some new swag sometime.
I think he lives up at Cordillera or the Dominion or something, so he's in the neighborhood.
I'm gonna go drink some Malbec and smoke cigars with him sometime.
I think I don't know how I had forgotten this, but if you look at you read some of those old like interviews and articles they did with him, he is apparently like a black belt in karate.
Why?
So, I don't know if it'll be Malbec and cigars, and maybe you have to, get into the dojo with him.
It kind of sounds like he needs to partner up with the Wildcatters instead of us.
So he's just
enter
in
the
his garage.
octagon.
He's just in his garage doing karate these days.
If you can hear that feedback noise, that would be Jode trying to figure out how to send a fax right now.
The only thing I can figure is the fan on my computer is a little louder than normal because it's about to die, clearly.
How many spreadsheets do you have open right now?
It's getting hotter in Texas, guys. Those fans are going to run a little harder.
There's
just three open right now. I've got about 20 websites, 3 spreadsheets.
I mean, how old is the computer, though? Knowing you, it's probably like...
Well, this was purchased in 2019 with Jesse Haney's money.
Oh.
Was it custom built back in 2012 though?
Could have been. I don't know how long computers are built to last anymore, so every day I wake up and think maybe I should just completely back up my shit or just buy a new one.
Yeah, you were talking about that earlier today, actually.
Well, my son got on there and did some Jedi bullshit, literally asking what kind of Jedi he was supposed to be, and I came in and it didn't blue screen of death me, but it was doing some disk rebuild bullshit. It wouldn't turn on normally, so something happened. And I'm getting old school, like, you remember back in the, well, you don't, because too young.
Pop-ups?
Well, pop-ups are just like, it's like, hey, congratulations, we're a pop-up on your screen that's now tracking your every keystroke, but you saved 10% on whatever.
I thought it was going to be porn.
Well, not yet. Give him a few years. When he's 12 or so, it's going to be really bad. I'm going to have to lock him out of here.
One of the greatest things is when they were sending that PowerPoint slide presentation around, or that email, and it had like the women moaning, and you were, it raised up your volume of your yeah. That doesn't fly anymore in corporate America. I haven't seen that one fly around the refinery in a while.
You had nicer friends than I did, because mine were always, they would send me the gay porn one.
Wait,
he's looking at gay porn. He's looking at gay porn. I remember that one.
Yeah, it was awful.
What about the helicopter one?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, we might need to dig that up just to send to you.
That's the Meat Spin and lemonparty.org.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Meat Spin. Oh, good times.
One of the greatest ones though is to get on like somebody's like dirty email list back in the day, like early 2000s, mid 2000s, and you not actually want that kind of material, but corporate's not going to get mad at you if you get that in your inbox. And well, I had to check the email. It's not that I saved it; I deleted.
I mean, y'all don't get busted for like the phishing emails all the time or anything like that. 90s.
No, this was like porn. Don't you remember they used to have like the PowerPoint slides for like Tropicana girls and the check this out. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just had dirtier friends.
Lammy Life was probably 12 years old when those were circulating the internet.
I forgot. Yeah, 90s is 40. He's like 30. I forgot how young he was. It's the beard.
I may have been a black belt back when I was 12 years old. Honestly.
Are you smoking cigars and drinking Maybach too?
Drinking Maybach. No, and I also don't live out in Cordillera Ranch, so maybe old Steve has something that I don't. Cause
you didn't scam Apache out of millions of dollars.
Because I would probably fire myself if I ever released a logo like that original Alpine High shit.
Well, it's rebranding to Toya Basin now, right?
I mean, I think that's kind of the direction they'll go. Is that stuff northwest of Toya and north of the interstate versus closer to Balmorhea.
'90s. What do you have going on this week?
So I actually had a really good week. I actually had dinner with Nape, Miss Nape, and Zach. and Don Jr. And so it was an excellent time to be had by all, but sadly, 90s embarrassed himself at the end when his vehicle wouldn't start. So if anybody knows 90s, he's quite of a thrifty fellow. He does spend quite a bit to party, but he doesn't spend it in the vehicles that he drives. It's a losing proposition for me. So
do you drive like a Geo Prism?
So I actually have a 98 Ford Ranger, and I don't care how rich I get. I'm going to be like Warren Buffett or anybody else. I'm going to drive like a crappy vehicle until the wheels fall off, and then I'll go get another one. So that's the kind of person I am.
I can see you driving a Ford Ranger. That seems very fitting.
So I was told that the fuel pump was going out the last time I took it in the shop, and I was like, I want to see how far I can get. Well, I got about 10,000 miles down the road, and so when they had to go pick up the truck from the west side of Houston, which was about a $200 tow, the guy, my mechanic over here on the south side, looked at me and said, "You know, I could have saved you $200 that day if you'd have just let me change your damn fuel pump." And I was like, "Yeah, but I got 10,000 miles out of it, so I don't know who's winning, me or him, because either way, he still got to do the work, and the tow truck driver got the $200. So." But yeah, that's always embarrassing when you get in to go or you're going to drive somebody home and the truck doesn't start. So.
Okay, so was Mrs. Nape at our Nape party?
Yes, she was.
Have I met her?
Yes, you have. Okay. She's a lovely lady, and she takes care of 90s. And I brought her a present to say thank you for that generosity and my forever friendship for taking care of me that night.
I'm pretty sure that I knew who she was, but then, more booze, and I really, after the fact, couldn't remember. So
yeah, she's memorable like 90s, I would say, but since the more booze came in, I can see how that got filtered out. I also got flashbacks of the night after I started talking to her at dinner. So, and both fear and excitement by the fun we had. So
was she reminding you about some of the crazy things that you did that night?
Oh my God. So now you're making me embarrassed. Yes, both of those.
Yeah, I mean, but you were surrounded by friends. It was all in good fun. We weren't going to let anything bad happen to you, but you were having a good time, man. I can't blame you.
Well, thank you. And that's what she said is that, and actually everybody and Zach and the other guys that were there at the dinner all said that, well, you don't seem like you were a bad guy. You're not like the asshole that I want to deck when you get drunk. As some people do get angry or mean when they get drunk, they did say that the most fun was I got funner and crazier, not meaner. So
you weren't on like a DRW level. That's for sure.
Oh man, I've heard of some of his like tears. So yeah, I'm always scared that I'll end up like him and be like chopping it up in like a mean way.
Hey, no offense, but you drive a 90s Ford Ranger, you're not going to end up like DRW.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, like his go-to is I've got more money than you. So I don't think we're dealing with, apples to apples.
We are not the same. Yeah, I got that. And I hope that if I ever get to be $90 million, $100 million, that I'm still the same person. Does that make sense? So I am pointed.
How much money does DRW have? Does anybody know?
I mean, he did end up getting a real job, so maybe he.
I thought he's at least a $20 to $50 million guy. I mean, I don't see him as a $100 million guy. Y'all think?
I have no idea. He just always talks about how much money he has.
Right, but he could have blown a bunch of that on his bad stock trades using small valuations.
Is he still on Twitter? Can I fucking tweet him?
No, he's on maybe LinkedIn. He's somewhere else. He's not on Twitter. So he's on Instagram. He follows you on Instagram, by the way. I know this for a fact.
I think I used to have his phone number, but I don't know if I can find it.
I will say one of the more embarrassing things that I found out about that night is I asked a person, are they a $10 million guy or a $100 million guy? And I can't tell if it was because I was trying to cut through their bullshit or I was actually like trying to bullshit them. I can't get through with what 90s asked that question for. But I did feel embarrassed about it.
I mean,
but
you could have asked weirder questions, I guess.
Yeah, but that one definitely kind of surprised me, and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." And they were like, "No, it was a really good question," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, yeah, there were some, there's some high-powered people out there that sometimes you can't tell if you're talking to someone important or they're bullshitting you that they're important. Does that make sense?
I think like a lot of the people on EFT are going to be bullshitting you. Honestly, I think the guys that really are important don't really need to rub it in your face.
I believe that too. I do believe that.
Or those guys don't last very long because they've got thin skin,
That too, but that's another part of the ego that comes along with making a whole lot of money, right? If you are that person that's grandioso because you've made $50 million by the time you're 35 or 40, like there's it sometimes seeps into you in ways that if people don't call you on it, you would make it bigger, right? And
I don't know.
90s likes to kind of cut through that part. And at least know who you are.
Assholes regardless of how much money they have, but if you're an asshole and you have a bunch of money, you're going to be an even bigger asshole.
Well, and then you can at least verify the reason for the assholery, right?
I don't know that I would agree with verify, but sure.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like when someone's kind of special and you say, like in Tommy Boy, did you eat, paint chips? You know why they're special now. They ate lead paint chips when they were growing up in the 80s.
Are you talking about Pepe? we got him sitting right here, man. Don't be talking to his face like that.
I'm a high-powered CEO.
Everybody was hit. Yeah. Well, that's why they took the lead out of the paint chips. But, after they let the 80s kids eat them. That's what I say.
Why did they take the lead out of the gasoline, though?
Well, that's because, they wanted vehicles and technology to keep pushing forward. And they wanted to take away that crutch that was lead, right? And go to a solid roller lifter instead of a flat lifter. And a camshaft.
Ah, the old camshaft.
The old camshaft reason. Yeah. But, lead in ETB, or not ETB, what is it? What did they used to put in gasoline? MTB. It's like every time you find a good additive, they take it away from you. That's the problem with the world these days.
I mean, every time you find a good addiction, they figure out a way to shame you. So,
well,
all I want to do is drink 30 beers before noon every day, and apparently I'm an alcoholic.
I told you about the guy I worked with and his doctor when he told him that, huh? Have I told you this story?
No, I don't think
a guy that I work with went to the doctor. He came back, and he said, "So how was the doctor?" He said, "I ain't going back to him. He made me feel like an alcoholic." And he said, "Well, Billy, you're not an alcoholic. What are you talking about?" And he says, "So I went in there and he's asking me things, and I get to the drinking and smoking. I'd smoke a pack a day or whatever, and he went to the drinking, and he said, well, I drink about 24. And the doctor said, 24, Billy. And he said, well, maybe 15 beers, because he's trying to write it down. He goes, man, I ain't going back to that guy. The way he said it made me feel like an alcoholic. I can't take that. So sometimes you just got to find the medical professional that will accept your drinking.
I mean, yeah, but seriously, who tells the truth on those questionnaires?
Well, obviously Billy did that day. He wasn't going to do that again.
Well, I mean, like, I feel sorry for Billy because his insurance probably costs 1,500% higher than it should have.
It very much so. But Billy loved beer. What can I say? When he got off, he would drink them like almost a 24-pack of beer.
Fuck,
The man been drinking since he was like 14. It was amazing.
I
And I met him
beer
at 60.
too, but that doesn't mean I have to tell the doctor about it.
But you know what he drank? He drank Keystone, of all things. Oh,
Are you talking about fucking Moody?
well, I didn't want to use names. But who else is on this call right now? Tejano?
No, we got Massive Frack, the intern, and Mr. Pepe, who I think is probably Permian landman,
Yes.
but maybe not. Who
I
knows?
recognize his voice.
My monotone Ben Stein voice.
Where are you at right now?
I'm in my vehicle staring at a trailer.
A trailer that you're wanting to purchase, or what?
No, a car trailer just kind of sitting in the yard.
Oh, so are you at home?
Yeah, I'm in my car about to take some stuff out of it, but I
Okay.
get some good signal here, so.
I didn't know if you were back out in Midland or on a road trip or what.
No, might be in Abilene here for too long.
Oh, you got to talk to Pollard. He knows where to find all them heifers.
Yeah, he's got to give me the heads up.
So what are you working on these days?
All kinds of feel-good ESG bullshit.
I mean, does that give you like the warm and fuzzies? Or are you getting paid well? What's the deal?
It's not bad. It's just kind of a learning experience because of the potential in that industry at some point. Not the potential for good, but the potential for profit.
Potential for grifting.
That too.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with people recently, and I've had some brokers contacting me, asking me to go work on renewable projects and stuff like that. The more interesting one was somebody asked me to go work for an electric co-op buying right-of-way for solar and wind farms. All of that shit, it's amazing. They're like, hey, they need somebody with 15 years experience, but they're only willing to pay $200 a day. Okay, well, get fucked and have fun finding that guy, because he's going to be a hell of a fucking landman, right?
Yeah, and I just don't see the whole solar and wind thing, especially more solar right now with, I guess, food prices and like the lack of, I guess, fertilizer availability for crop yields is going to make farmland, I think, more valuable. So anybody that signs away their farmland for solar I don't think is making a good decision. At least I wouldn't.
Yeah, and I think that the bigger thing is that they occupy so much fucking land. And when somebody puts let's say like a 5 or 6 acre well pad out on your place and drills, 3, 4, 5 oil wells out there, after the first year or two, they can actually reclaim a lot of that pad, and you'll end up with about 3 acres. When you do a solar deal, that's like a 20-year standard. Is that correct? With like a 10-year extension, I think. Is that
It
what
can
you
be 20 to 40.
And so you're giving, that's hundreds of acres. They're not trying to put a solar farm on 5 acres, right?
Yeah, it could be 500 to 4,000.
And you are basically giving them for the foreseeable lifespan of most people, if you're an adult that is signing that lease, you might not ever see that land returned back to you in your lifetime.
Nope.
It's pretty wild to me that this shit's going on and people are signing these leases and having that much of their property used for these solar farms where, I mean, and then there's also the other inverse deal where, you know, after they remove those solar panels and everything, that soil is not ever going to produce anything again. So, I mean, you have basically turned that into wasteland on your property. Oil and gas, actually, you know, you go spill some oil out in the brush and come back next year, and that's going to be the fucking greenest patch of pasture that you have.
The
Well,
best
I
smoking
remember-
mesquite out there.
Up
Yeah,
in
exactly.
up in Oklahoma, when I interned at Continental and we did a rig tour, they were talking about how like the farmers around where the rig was would basically like, yeah, exactly, would pay them to get their hands on their like drilling cuttings because it was like fertilizer.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. And
I guess there's like nitrogen or something.
Yeah.
It really just amazes me that, you know, with the wind farms, it's not as bad because the actual like footprint of those turbines is much larger than you would think if you've only seen them from a distance. You know, like I've driven up next to plenty of them, and you know, they are wider than my truck is long. So those things are huge, but the pads that they're on are pretty small. The solar stuff is amazing to me, and you know, the heat that those solar farms put off too is crazy. You know, they're talking about building a giant, you know, like 10,000 acre solar farm just to the west of Dilley, and all of these landowners that are potentially going to be signing these solar leases are wondering, you know, well, it's going to be pretty hot and dusty. It already is. How much worse is it going to get? Nobody really knows.
Yeah, I'd
But
say
if it
the
gets-
only people making money there are the ones washing the solar panels.
I mean, I was going to say, if it gets too hot and dusty, I mean, like, the solar panels aren't going to fucking work anymore. So somebody's going to be out there fucking cleaning them.
Yeah,
Or-
I think of
Maybe that's the business. Pressure washing solar panels.
Yep. I think maybe the only, whatever you call this, green tech that might be somewhat usable is battery storage. And maybe in areas where you can kind of capture that energy and sell it back. But
That's
yeah,
not
the whole
really
solar
even
panel
a thing yet.
It is in some parts of California, I guess, where they have excess energy because of all their renewable projects, but you're still going to
Well-
struggle with materials for the batteries.
Well, yeah, but actually using batteries is not really feasible right now. So, you know, there are certain places that have, you know, like giant reservoirs of water where they can use that as a battery because they are, you know, running the water down through, you know, a heater and turning it into steam through a turbine that is powering generators, and then they are pumping that steam back up into the reservoir. So you're effectively like, you know, turning the heater on for a giant water reservoir and using that thermal energy to call it a battery. But I mean, what Peter Thiel's, you know, deal with his Bitcoin mine, saying that he's using that as a battery. It's not actually a fucking battery. That's literally just absorbing the excess capacity off the grid.
Yeah, he's just turning that excess power into some other type of money
Right.
to move wherever else he wants to.
It has nothing to do with storing energy. And, I mean, battery technology on a large scale, I don't think actually works for any of that shit yet.
Yeah, I just think like if you contrast it between the other, whatever you call them, renewable technologies, the one that working at a larger scale, battery storage, and not the solar panels.
Still
Like
got
if I was
there's
the
a bunch of oil
farmer,
and gas to dig up lithium and shit.
yeah, if I was a farmer, I would not. I would keep my farmland and never entertain the idea of the solar farm at all. I would.
Yeah, I think it's short-sighted for people to be doing that.
Yeah, I agree.
Although maybe we're all going to be the fucking losers sitting there 10 years saying, "Oh shit, we should have taken those solar leases."
I mean, I'm all for buying and flipping the solar leases. I don't think that the people in that industry right now, I don't think they're as competitive as oil and gas lease flippers.
No, they're certainly not. What are you furiously clicking away on over there, Jed?
What? No, that's me.
What are you furiously clicking away on?
Just cleaning up my email inbox while I listen to PL ramble.
Wait till I get into the shit coins.
We'll have to boot you from the call if you do that.
90 said his phone overheated.
He's having problems, man. Rangers overheating, phones overheating.
Yeah.
What happened to Norm? Norm
I
had
don't
some
know.
green landman questions and then he bolted.
Apparently TUI reached out to him and he's got an interview to go work for TUI on Monday next week. That's kind of like the Chris Fales situation where like, oh, I can train somebody to do this job better than anyone else that actually knows more than I do. Cool. You are still vibrating, dude.
Me?
Yeah.
Damn it. I'm sorry. I don't know what it is. I can hear my fan, but I don't know if I'm just self-conscious about it because you're having issues or
Because
it's
I'm
actually
chaining you.
Yeah, it's actually working too hard today. I don't know. I can't hear anything else. I can try without the headphones. Hold on.
Close some of the spreadsheets.
Is that better or worse? Same.
It stopped for a second and now it's back.
It's got to be the fan on the next to the microphone or something, or vibrating on the laptop microphone.
Can you move the microphone away from the source of?
I mean, the microphone is the computer, so
The microphone is. The files are in the computer.
Yep.
Oh, look what we got now. So, I don't know. I've been having a lot of conversations with people down here in South Texas about the solar and wind and all of that, and a lot of the people that I'm talking to would much prefer to be working with an oil company, but if they're in an area that, maybe it's already been, developed by a company and they're just like pulled into horizontals and stuff like that. They're kind of looking at this saying, well, if we don't really use the surface for farming or any of that, maybe it might be a good deal. Again, I come back to, you're going to have the transmission lines for all of that excess capacity. And I mean, that's going to be a huge fucking right-of-way project, because those transmission lines are going to have to go to even larger, substations and all of that before they go into cities. But a lot of the electrical infrastructure for the giant transmission lines that we have down in South Texas was put in place in like the 80s. So we're going to need all new transmission lines and everything. Are there going to be people out there protesting the transmission line projects? Because transmission lines, it's been pretty well linked to, if you live next to high power transmission lines, you're probably going to have a higher chance of cancer and all kinds of other issues.
They can eminent domain you, though, for transmission lines.
Well, I feel like we should be able to eminent domain people for whatever we want.
So you don't get superpowers living next to transmission lines?
You might, but
I mean, you could.
not everybody else.
I might.
You could
have,
but that wouldn't be fair to the people that don't live next to transmission lines.
sharpen.
This may be a little bit of a distraction about the transmission lines, but that was pretty well when a lot of rural South Texas got electrified. And could you imagine how just desolate and primitive most of South Texas was before that? When most of the rest of the United States was electrified in the 50s and 60s, South Texas was hung out there for another 30 years.
Yeah, but a lot of those towns didn't need to exist anymore. No, I'm serious. Like, a lot of those towns would be like a post office and a population of 15 people. And that's not really even a town. That's, a couple of people that live on nearby ranches or whatever that still use that post office. And they're the ones that would be protesting if they ever tried to get rid of the damn post office. Because then you don't have a damn town.
You sound like a big government communist right now.
Yeah. So I grew up in LaGrange, and there's little bitty towns all over the place out there, from Neck and Itch and Reutersville and even Round Top and what's that little shithole town where they have that antique festival out there?
I thought that was
Round Top.
Warrenton's where the actual festival is. So it's such a small town that it's like Round Top overshadows it.
Well, I mean, what was it? The chicken ranch? Chicken shack?
Yeah, Chicken Ranch right outside of LaGrange.
Yeah. Ever since they got rid of that, I mean, LaGrange actually has like an HEB and some other stuff, but nobody travels to LaGrange anymore.
Yeah. One of my favorite towns ever is a little bitty town called Winchester, kind of between LaGrange and Smithville on a back road. And it's just a little German hick town. And about 2:00 every day, all the farmers show up at the local bar and just do their thing.
I tried to get some leases signed in Winchester one time, and I did not know that all of the farmers were not there because they were at the fucking bar. Would have been some clutch information 8 years ago.
He would have got all those leases had he known that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a story from years ago when they just organized the volunteer fire department in Winchester, and fire happened, out in a hay pasture somewhere. About 6:00 in the afternoon, somebody's finishing up cutting some hay.
Fire happened.
Yeah.
It just spontaneously occurred.
It's probably caused by a human. So the fire department showed up, or the volunteer fire department showed up on one of their first calls, and 4 or 5 guys showed up in their personal rigs, and like one of them was driving so fast and he was so drunk when he got to the fire, like he couldn't get stopped, and he rolled his truck up out in the field, and it caught on fire, caused another fire, and just
It sounds like the Lane Man Life Volunteer Fire Department.
We should start a volunteer fire department. I would totally support that cause because one of my good friends is from Mississippi, and his dad has been the chief of their volunteer fire department in the little town he's from since it was created. And his dad says that it is a complete and utter waste of taxpayer resources. But anyone that is running a volunteer fire department could absolutely scam a lot of money off of them. So I think maybe we should start a volunteer fire department, and maybe if we did that, then the Digital Wildcatter group would start like 100 volunteer fire departments once they figured out what we were doing. They'd figure out some way to mine Bitcoin out of the fire department, but got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think McQueenie could probably use a volunteer fire department. We can just go hang out by the river all day.
I think they do have a volunteer fire department already. Pretty sure they do. So WTX, what are you working on right now?
I just got off of a conference call with our I&E guys. So we've got some. We just did a pipeline expansion project on a field we bought about 6 months ago, and we're turning on a bunch of meters that have control valves and shutdown valves, and new facilities with new pumps and old pumps that are like our new old pumps, our old new pumps, or anyways, they've been repurposed. So it's at the point where we have to start. We got to start having daily meetings with our engineers and instrument and controls guys.
And how long is that going to last?
Probably a week.
Yeah, short term.
Yeah, at the most. I've got them scheduled out for 2 weeks, but I doubt that's gonna take 2 weeks unless there's something we can blame on the supply chain.
So earlier today, you were asking about how to fix a doer and turn him into a more overseer type.
Yeah.
Have you had any resolution on that?
Yeah, and that's not like a lickety split, one sentence or one piece of advice fixes it, right? It's it's I got a guy that came to me and said, "Hey, I want to help you. I want to learn how to be in management. I see that you could use some help here and there, and how to do those things." And he's one of my top guys in the field, but he's like I told you that, like if I go assign a technical task to him, he's the best doer of that task. But if I say, "Hey, these 3 guys each have 3 of their own tasks, can you make sure they have all the tools they need and they show up on time and they do this and this and this?" And he ends up doing all 9 of those tasks himself.
Well, maybe you need to give him more meth and all 9 of those tasks. Is that in the realm of possibilities?
Oh, for sure.
Because my suggestion initially was take away the meth. But now maybe I'm thinking more meth might be the answer.
Is that a bumper sticker?
I mean, it should be a bumper sticker. Meth is the answer.
Yeah, meth could be the answer.
I mean, it might be. For a lot of people getting back into the workforce, maybe meth is the answer.
Smoke meth, not brisket.
No, can't support that.
Labor shortage cured by meth.
If they just started prescribing Adderall to everybody, a lot more shit would get done.
May not be the right shit, but if you get enough of
more shit.
Yeah. But if you get enough shit happening, like the aggregate of that would be more of the right shit happening, even though like 60 to 70% of the shit happening would be not productive.
TikTok videos in like high speed. So, intern, did any of the Tulsa guys ever respond? Did you talk to them today?
No. I don't talk to them as frequently as you think I do.
I mean, are any of them gonna show up for the wedding and or bachelor party and or anything ever?
That's a very good question. Very good question.
Wait, we have a wedding?
We do have a wedding. We have an EFT wedding.
No, we don't.
And apparently nobody's invited.
That doesn't mean nobody's coming.
I got to save the date, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make the final cut for an actual invitation. The save the dates may have gone out to, 300 people. Who knows?
Definitely not. I don't even think I know 300 people.
Sure don't like 300 people.
Right.
Will there be Pepe themes anywhere?
That is a negative. I think
Tejano Brown was not hired as the wedding coordinator.
right.
Although, can you imagine how fucking insane a wedding would be if he was the person planning everything? There would be fucking ATF explosive devices hidden all over the place.
It would just be a hangout at Charlo's. That's all it would be.
Yeah, I was saying, do they allow explosives at Charlo's?
They probably don't not allow explosives at Charlo's.
Good point.
I mean, I still need to get up to Midland to go experience Charlo's. I think I've had a couple of parties there at this point. How was the party last week? WTX.
I thought it was pretty good. I was rolled in was for all the feedback I got, I was expecting way more of a crowd than we were prepared for. And then the crowd that showed up was just under what we prepared for. And it once everybody got about 2 or 3 drinks in them, it turned into a pretty good party.
Yeah.
We were only at risk of 2 fights.
I mean, y'all did have Pollard there, who it is absolutely fucking amazing how short he looks next to Hot Dog. I mean, that photo, did y'all do that intentionally?
No.
I mean, when I met him for the first time, I was shocked by how small he is.
Pollard?
Yeah.
So is he actually that small, or is Hot Dog really 17 feet tall like everybody was saying?
Hot Dog's a tall guy, but Josh is pretty small. He's pretty scrawny.
Huh.
I wouldn't want to fight him, don't get me wrong.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't really want to fight anybody. Maybe DRW. I don't know. Depends on whether he was wearing panties on his face at the time.
Does that make you want to fight him more or less?
Depends on the situation. That is a good question, though.
Oh, man. I got to grab a beer.
I guess we lost Norm. Did we scare him off with the Cheers reference?
Probably.
I think Norm is pretty impatient.
Oh, well. Nothing happens fast when you're working as a landman. Nothing
That's
good
rule number
happens
one.
fast.
Rule number 1 of land manning.
It's about to learn.
You have done right, done fast, or done cheap, and sometimes you can pick two.
Hey, speaking of land manning, I got to get off here in a second. Try not to derail this too much, but um, as you know, like I'm down to one job right now, and for most people that's a-okay. But I'm looking at some other stuff. You get the opinion here. This particular group keeps posting, and they want references, and I've got plenty of references that are not the people that I'm working for at the moment, and I don't want to put soap out there. Like, is that just going to be a non-starter? I hate this freaking dance I have to do sometimes.
I honestly would tell them if they need references, they should call Landman Life directly, and I would give them the intern's phone number.
Okay. Sounds good.
I mean, seriously though, who the fuck asked for references for landman work? Because most landmen nowadays didn't work for the same company for 10 years, you know.
Well, I mean, I guess I could see both sides of that. I could see them thinking like, well, I want to make sure they're not a total slapdick, so when they call a broker they worked with before. But I have been working with soap since 2019.
But like in a lot of instances on, when I've worked on larger jobs and been there for, a couple months, a year or two, whatever, depending on who you're calling, if you're trying to call like one of the principal people at that company, assuming they're still around, they might go, I don't know who the fuck Gates Miller is. When I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to list my crew chief who's, living in American Samoa, flipping fucking hot dogs in a, tiki hut or whatever now.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't have a phone number, but you can email him at, like surferlandman@yahoo.com.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that's an unrealistic expectation, and I think it kind of signifies somebody that's going to be a pain in the ass to work for.
Well, you might be right on that second part. I don't know. Maybe I'll just kick the can down the road. Find somebody who's not into doing DD on their future employees. It's much better.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of work they're trying to get done, also.
Well, I mean, that's another thing. Is like some of these guys, they post that they're looking for due diligence land work, and then they get a hold of you like, yeah, great. Yeah, we have those projects, but also here's this really shitty project just to get you started. And then you never get out of that loop,
Well, I will say I don't think there's a problem with listing the soap guys as a reference. I think they would be a good reference for you. I think the chances of anyone actually calling them are pretty slim. But, in terms of limiting future availability on other projects from soap, I don't know that would negatively impact you. Who knows? They might call you and say, hey, we got this other project and we're actually going to pay you more now.
Yeah.
Start a bidding war,
Yeah.
That didn't work out well for me.
Well, that's fresh on my mind too. Your guys were like, what's going on? Like,
yeah. Well,
all the boomers in the world still expect some kind of loyalty, and that's not what's happening in the real world.
They didn't have any other work for me to do anyways. And so I was like, I don't know what you guys expect me to like sit around and wait for you to call.
Right.
My loyalty is that you pay me, and when you stop paying me, the loyalty,
Yeah, but even if you're getting a check, right, you're still loyal to the highest bidder.
That's correct. The almighty dollar.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna quit a steady job for a week worth of high pay, but like,
right,
yeah.
Right. But
that's what's so jacked about the contract world is, we're like acknowledging that you're not my boss. I do work for you occasionally. Sometimes I don't speak to you for 2 months.
But that's what I liked about talking with those other guys you introduced me to. I liked that they understood, hey, you guys are not beholden to us, and we're not beholden to you, and everybody's working in this contractor space, and you want to work for the best people on the best job while it's available.
Right. Yeah.
But
I think as the boomers transition out of it, that mindset will start changing.
Well, and again, this brings me back to the renewable stuff that everybody that keeps offering me this shit is saying, oh yeah, they're paying half of what you want. Do you want to go do this work? Well, no, I don't want to go do that work because I can spend my time in other profitable ways. I can also sit there and watch TikTok videos all day and feel pretty fucking great about myself. Working for $200 a day, like, no, I'm not going to fucking do that.
Well,
I was doing some consulting for a guy that was doing consulting for a solar company, and all I was doing was, at first he was sending me pictures to say, hey, what is this? I'm like, yeah, that's a two-phase separator, electric line, pump jack, stuff like that. Really, really simple stuff.
Sounds like he was an expert.
Yeah. Then it got into some of these guys in the solar business know nothing, and they admit it, right? They were like, hey, we just need you to tell us what to do here. Later, Massive Frack.
Hey, catch you guys later. Sorry, I got to go pay the sitter. Y'all have fun.
No problem.
Have a good weekend,
Take it
buddy.
easy.
So, yeah, it sometimes it's just over and over again, and like there was on Google Earth or Google like Street View or something like that, there was a glitch in some stuff, and he was like, "Is this actually here?" And then it's sometimes it's stuff that I do on like reconnaissance work when we're looking at buying something. So it was pretty easy work for me. The hardest part was summarizing everything in a Word document or email that ended up being, after you put all these thoughts into words, it ends up being a pretty wordy document, right?
Yeah.
So and they just absolutely love that. But I haven't gotten any work from him this month, and he normally in the first week of the month he normally like throws a couple projects out there. I think it's because he wanted my invoices in by the 3rd, and I just completely forgot about him until about the 15th of every month, going, hey, I worked last month and I didn't receive any money for that. Let me send out an invoice. So
I mean,
here it is, the 8th, and I haven't sent out an invoice for last month yet. So
send him a fucking invoice right now.
Yeah,
$50,000 payable to Landman Life.
Yeah, and I'm working way too cheap. Also, like I probably need to double my rates. But when he sent it to me, he was I was surprised that like he needed this type of work, and it was
yeah, but like the people that are getting these jobs are saying the right things. They don't have the right experience. I mean, PL, would you agree with that?
I think so. It just, I guess, depends on each situation or each entity that's offering these services.
Intern, have you gotten any renewables offers lately that make you want to quit your day job?
No, I don't. I haven't had anybody hit me up for anything in a while. Besides notary services.
Someday we're gonna hire you for some kind of like really shitty job that pays an obscene amount of money, and just deal with MT's rage when you turn in your 2 years notice or whatever.
I just think it's
It's
because
going to involve Pepe memes too.
I haven't updated my
NFTs.
LinkedIn in a while, so I don't know.
I actually added founder of Landman Life to my LinkedIn the other week, and nobody has actually given 2 fucks about it yet. Apparently, it's not really a thing for anyone to care anymore. Unless you're doing live podcasts on LinkedIn, which I think is also kind of gay.
So you were doing some videos and editing and stuff like that for Moody and Towner Brown and maybe someone else for a little while. Are you still doing that, or is that kind of expire or run its course?
We had a baby, and yeah, that happened. So
wait, you and Tejano Brown?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, and Moody's mustache actually. So
3 men and a baby.
I haven't really had time for any of that, and because I didn't really have time for it, it just kind of died out. I have a whole bunch of videos from Alberta, and I just need to get an intro made for all of his stuff so that I can post some of that, because I keep telling everybody, send me your videos. I don't care if they've already been posted or whatever. I want to be able to put them somewhere and have a little more context added to them than just post it on Twitter. And if you can do some type of write-up on what it is that you're showing and where people can find more information about that process, or go into a little bit more detail than what was covered in the video, I think that that's a really beneficial resource for people to have. And I think that the more information that is out there available about the oil and gas industry for somebody who might not be experienced dealing with oil and gas, I think the more approachable we can make the industry, the better off everybody's going to be. Because this whole, you should thank us for the shirt on your back attitude has completely backfired. And, people that are trying to end fossil fuels have the dominant narrative now. So the only way that I can think of to kind of combat that would be kind of open up and let people know more about the processes and how we're doing all of these different things. Because when Democrats talk about, well, we need everybody to start fracking again, they don't fucking understand how long it takes for you to get a location ready to drill, and how long it takes, and how many jobs are involved with drilling, and then how many people are involved with the completion side of stuff. And then you've got flowback and putting wells into production and setting up pipelines and all this other stuff that a lot of people just literally don't understand. They think you send a drilling rig out there and 3 weeks later you've drilled and fracked a well, and now it's just going to explode oil into the sky and set the world on fire. It's not the fucking case. So
Yeah, we actually don't want that to happen.
right, that actually kills people. So that's kind of where I was going with trying to promote those videos, and I would like to get back to that. And I think that that's really just something that I'm going to need to work out my work landman life balance, because I was doing all of that myself, and obviously I need to have someone else taking care of that for me if I were to have a good bit of material coming in on a regular basis.
Yeah, that was like 100% of the purpose of me creating the WTX Oil account and the whole WTX Oil identity. And my most popular video was the walkthrough of our most simple and dumbest SWD that we have in our system, but people fucking loved it. And it's our most simple SWD is still way more sophisticated than most SWDs in the Permian Basin and many other basins. So it was fun to see the criticism and the the people really asking questions, going, why do y'all do this and why do y'all do that, and like how does the controls work, and what happens here, and why did you design it this way and not this way, and or better yet, you're a dumbass for designing it this way and not this way. Like, maybe,
Yeah.
but probably not, right?
At least those comments, you're looking at it going, huh, okay, well, maybe they know something that I don't. Maybe they don't.
And these fucking baby chicks start chirping at me every time I start talking, by the way. But yeah, so that was my most popular video. But the one that I got the most DMs and the most engagement on is actually a series of videos that I did on LAC units, and it was like 7 or 9 videos, and I had people that have no idea about field work, and it was mostly people that are in the industry, but they're in like there's some back office, beat your head against the desk accountant, or just HR person or something like that that's worked at ConocoPhillips for a million years. And actually QDC DM'd me after I started doing the LAC unit videos, and he was like, dude, I've seen these on AFEs, on this and that, on quarterly reports. He was like, I never ever knew what a LAC unit did. I was like, it's just it pumps and measures oil. That's all it does. But it does a lot of things. It has to do a lot of things to do that, right? And that series of videos, and it was just me holding my Android, walking around the unit with no editing, no anything. I didn't start editing videos until, I don't know, a couple months ago, and those are my like least popular videos of the ones that I've edited.
Yeah, it's not easy.
And I suck at editing. Don't get me wrong. It's just it's
not fun either.
No, you have to do it though, because it's just a bag of shit if you don't.
So I mean, like I look back now on the intros for Moody and Tejano Brown's videos, and I'm like, these are shitty intros, but at the same time, it's better than nothing. And the only way that I could make a better intro is to have more video, to use little snippets as part of that intro.
Yeah, but I think you're right. Like, it's this the green crowd, and it's a pretty broad term, but there's a pretty broad, the groups that hate us are pretty broad, I guess. There's there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so approaching them, like them going, hey, oil and gas guys, fuck you, you're bad, you're destroying the earth. To return with that same energy is not going to get us anywhere.
No.
We can't turn right back around and go, fuck you more. You need us. Like, they know they need us. They don't want to admit it. We know they need us, but like that you got to flip that back around and put out that positive energy, put out that positive, hey, here's what we're doing for you.
Yeah. And so I know so many people that got into, like when Mike Rowe started doing Dirty Jobs, shows like that, where they're showing, processes that are maybe, maybe they're high skill, maybe they're highly technical, maybe they're just, like random labor that is completely necessary for the functioning of our modern society. doesn't matter. People are interested in seeing how is it that these processes that I have either heard about or never knew about, how is it that they work? And the more information that you can put out that is available, that is not done by a Schlumberger or Halliburton, you know, where they're spending, a lot of money for these, high quality animated videos, but everything is extremely, coordinated, and it looks like that frac process takes 15 seconds, according to that video, you know. I think the more approachable that you can make the industry, the better off we're going to be having people who could turn into a, you know, end fossil fuels now type of activist saying, okay, well, there's actually, thousands of people doing highly technical jobs that are extremely specialized and experienced that are managing all of these different processes. And this is not something that you can say is, just one aspect that is absolutely evil and destroying the planet. Because the focus on fracking is really kind of what started the modern narrative on everything. And as much as I hate to say it, Gasland, when HBO put Gasland out there, that got people's attention.
Yeah, and not all of that was untrue, but there was enough untrue things in Gasland that just, they were really on the untrue stuff. They were just really ill informed,
but a lot of people saw that and said, well, this is a documentary on HBO. It's got to be true. And that kind of formed a basis of opinion that, the oil and gas industry is out here polluting everybody's groundwater and stuff like that. And, I'm not saying that shit doesn't happen. It does. The stuff that happened in Dimick, the shit that's going on out in, Crane County, all of that stuff. Yeah, things are fucked up. People make mistakes. Companies make mistakes. No industry is free from that. But because the oil and gas industry is absolutely necessary to human life, it has an added focus, and the spotlight does not fade on issues that occur in the oil and gas industry the same way they do when, Johnson and Johnson cause ovarian cancer because of talcum powder, and Roundup causes cancer because of carcinogenic compounds that in extremely high volumes can cause cancer. A lot of this stuff, it happens, and it's literally just a flash in the pan. With the oil and gas industry, when that stuff happens, that stays. It sticks around, and it's because it's necessary for everything that we do.
Yeah, and also when there's a problem with a wellbore or many wellbores, like wellbores are forever, right? There's no like once you punch that hole in the ground, it is a hole forever. Even if you fill it up with cement or fill it up with sand or whatever, like it's still a conduit for for something to happen. And so maybe a little bit of that is justified that it sticks around, that those problems stick around, because when there actually is a problem and it's not a pipeline or a surface issue or surface equipment issue, something like that, if it's a casing issue or something like that, if they can't get that under control and repaired, then it's a problem forever.
Right. I think that most companies are, I can't say most. I think that companies are doing the best they can.
Sure.
But I think that the the plugging liability and stuff like that, orphan wells, abandoned wells, things. I'm speaking specifically to Texas. I know that this is an issue elsewhere, but they have different ways of dealing with it. I think that all of those things are huge issues that need to be addressed. I don't think that doing a immediate knee jerk blanket, policy change would be a good idea for the industry or our economy or the world.
Sure.
But there are things that need to be addressed, and there are for sure operators out there that should not be operating. I I
Yeah, and
heard just like a quarter mile to the west of our ranch that I'm sitting at right now, the other day, that they had an old oil well that was, blowing oil 30 feet up in the air that you could see from 35 driving by. And somebody said, hey, did you guys, go and like frack that well or whatever? Well, fuck no, I didn't frack that well. I don't know what you're even talking about. I didn't know there was a well out there. We haven't done anything in the area, but it is immediately associated with, obviously fracking blew out that well. And to my knowledge, I don't think anybody actually is drilling horizontally underneath that area.
what? So what causes? I mean, it's probably old legacy production, right?
Well, about 3 months ago, they had a workover rig out there on that well, which is the only reason I knew there was a well out there. But
So they stimulated it somehow, right? Pumping acid or pumping something, right? That
I guess I don't know what would really cause a blowout like that.
unless there was somewhere
That
else where they
long
were
after the
injecting.
fact.
Yeah,
But it's an old, tiny little pump jack, old vertical well, and tiny tank battery out there. I mean, it's probably a 1 acre pad total, but you can see it from the highway. I don't even know who owns the property.
yeah.
Just very interesting that thing apparently blew out last week, is what everybody's saying. When I drove by yesterday, I was trying to see if I could spot any cleanup or whatever that had happened around there. It looks fine, but immediately the reaction was, oh well, somebody else fracked a well and this thing just exploded, which does happen.
Yeah, that definitely happens. I mean, we've seen it time and time again, right? And operators have started talking to each other, and they'll shut in their wells that are offset from a well being fracked, and some say that makes for a better frack, and sometimes offsetting operators will go ahead and get a pumping unit or pumping truck and pressure up or even refract their wells either before or after the frack that's happening, like the current frack. And but on the operators that just ignore it, they end up with frack water shooting out of their PSVs and stuff in box blowouts and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's happened to us plenty of times down here. We've had plenty of frack hits and nobody appreciates it. Um, I think it's what I'm talking about is the old legacy vertical wells.
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the horizontals that, a lot of that shit back in the day, they wouldn't file for a permit unless they actually made a well. And there are old well bores that are poked all over South Texas and elsewhere where there's no documentation about it. Somebody just went out there, got a lease and, poked a hole and said, "Oh, well, whatever, it's a dry hole," and left.
Pulled the casing out.
Yeah. So
just left the mud in it, right?
It's literally just a fucking hole in the ground, and I guess your mud is kind of your plug over time. And then, the horizontal drilling comes in at, a much deeper depth usually, and, stimulates that formation. And it's mostly just gas that'll kind of like initially clear everything out, but then some oil will come to the surface. And most of the time, what we're seeing is not, like a huge spill. Maybe a couple hundred barrels, something like that, would be on the large side. But if we don't know about these old locations, I'm certainly not authorized to be going and driving out into the middle of somebody else's pasture if it has nothing to do with our current operation. I'm not leaving our lease road or our pad site or whatever to just go drive around to take a look off in the brush. Somebody's going to find that eventually. And, you're going to have some oil sitting there on the ground. And, it's unfortunate that we're not able to get involved in those situations, because when the landowner calls and says, "Hey, obviously you guys caused this," well, I can't really take liability on that. So here's the Railroad Commission's number, and you need to call them and they'll take care of it. And the Railroad Commission goes out there, and I think they do a pretty good job most of the time from what I've seen.
On stuff like that, they do a good job.
They do. And they'll do the cleanup. They'll go and, it might take time for them to go and plug something that's not, exploding gas or oil out of the ground. Obviously there's a much higher urgency when something is blowing out versus something that's just seeping out of the ground. But it's amazing that I go and I talk with these guys that operate the, plug-in units they bring out and everything. And, they say a hell of a lot of the wells that they're plugging aren't even in the database. No information was ever filed on that shit. So when you're looking at that stuff, I mean, I think you're talking about like stuff that happened in the 60s and before.
Yeah. And and then look at the stuff that Pollard's working on, right? So some of these wells are from the 40s, or maybe there's no record of a well, but like the wells that were nearby it were developed in the 40s, right? Well, that probably means around that time, the well that blew out is got drilled. Like I mean, it happens everywhere, right? I've seen the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources go build a road and build a location around a hole in the ground that's just it's tiny, but it's spitting up produced water and natural gas, and they go enter a well and they're on it for 3 months before they finally get it under control and plugged and all that stuff. And they'll say, "Hey, we don't know who the operator is around here, or what they know who the operator is around there, but that operator is not claiming that they did this well."
Right.
It's evident just because from vegetation around it that operator, the trees around it are 50 years old, right? It just, that operator's only been here for 10 years. Chesapeake's only been here for 10 years,
or
something like that. So, they'll enter it, they'll plug it just like the Railroad Commission does, and they'll go back through all of their records and try to find some company that was doing work in the area. But sometimes, especially in those really rural areas, Sometimes it was just some handshake deal between a farmer and a wildcatter that said, "Let me punch a hole out here, and I'll tell you if you got oil or not." And then, sometimes they found oil and gas, and sometimes they didn't. And then,
And
and sometimes that wildcatter stole all that fucking oil. And
I mean, I've talked to a couple of people down here that, in the 80s had companies that would show up in the middle of the night and steal oil and stuff like that, where, they weren't doing too great when things went south. And, a load of oil here or there might, help out the bottom line to keep the doors open and the lights on. But there's been a lot of shit that's going on in the oil industry, and we're not exempt from any of the corruption or abuse of other industries. But I do think that the spotlight continues to shine, and like you were saying, those holes in the ground last forever. I mean, dude, cancer and shit like that, things that are going to be passed on to your children and your grandchildren and stuff like that are caused from exposure to chemicals or what have you.
just ancient bacteria that's in waters that have been in these rocks for thousands and thousands of years, millions of years, that are just now coming to surface and thriving in oxygen and sunlight, right?
I mean, now we need Tejano Brown to hop on here. That's like a
Yeah,
ancient aliens that we dig up by fracking a well would be something that he would be really interested in.
yeah. So
Anunnaki.
one
What'd you say? PL, you still there? Oh, I think we lost him.
Yeah, I was just calling them Anunnaki wells or whatever.
Does that mean that the aliens did it?
I think that's supposed to be some kind of like ancient race of aliens or something. I just remember them talking about that.
one of the not trying to blow that off, but I know we're probably getting towards the end. So
Yeah.
this may be a conversation for the next show. But you take all everything we just talked about here, and then like all the problems with our industry. We only just talked about a few of them, and the things that we're now doing better, the things that still need to be done better, and it takes money to do each one of those things. And then this movement, and it's not new. It's not an original thought, right? This is just every time there's a quick run up on fuel prices, it's the popular thing to do. But this thought of like the Elizabeth Warren windfall tax stuff, like that's the only thing government can do is make those problems worse when they start trying to influence how these energy companies make money or what they do with their money. And this ties in the full circle on what we were talking about. What we were talking about previously was we've got to tell our stories, because we have to first of all say what good we're doing, what good, not even what good we're doing, and just our existence is good for communities and people. And then we can start talking about what good we actually do. But then if we're limited on how much money we can make, or we're just supposed to be a nonprofit industry in perpetuity, then there's not going to be any room to go reinvest in some of these old fields and do and do things cleanly. Like if every single penny is going to be stripped from us, then where's the incentive to do things proper and right?
Well,
if an executive can't go line his pockets for a certain reason, then why even exist?
So the whole premise of what I was talking about the other day, that the oil industry should produce more to, help the American people. Well, in the United States, we're, a capitalist economy, and those companies, seeing as some are private and some are public, those companies were set up to earn revenue and returns for shareholders. And people invest money in these companies with the expectation of a return. Why would companies all of a sudden say, we're no longer here to make money, we're just going to help everybody out? They wouldn't have any money to continue to operate.
Yeah, I picked on executives lining their pockets, but really what I meant was investors. If there's not room for an investor to line their pockets and do this, and the investors want to do good things too, right? But they, first of all, they got to get rich, and then as long as that's happening, as long as they're making their returns that they expect,
Well,
yes, we can start doing some of these.
Something that was amazing about the shale revolution was that they continued to have people that were investing money. And I feel like, I don't know, there was a lot of the false narrative that this is going to change the world and the industry and everything. I mean, it did. It didn't necessarily change everything for the better, but it also did not ever change anything for the better for the investor, because there are a lot of people that lost a fuck ton of money for an entire decade on the shale revolution, because what you were talking about with the executives lining their pockets and all that, there are a lot of people who got extremely rich over increasing production without ever actually caring about increasing the return on that production. So I think that model kind of got broken and is done. I think that the new model right now is that everybody's still kind of sitting here trying to figure out, where are we going to find the capital to invest in what we think is necessary for what we're forecasting as the demand going forward. And everybody is deathly afraid that the federal government is going to continue on the crusade of, we're going to destroy fossil fuels. And as long as that is the narrative, I don't know that companies are going to be willing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into programs that aren't going to show a return for, 4 to 6 years.
Yeah, and if it's not, if new tax policy is going to take any profit away, then what the heck? Why would we invest? Thank you.
For sure. Why are people going to give more money to these companies that are going to then have their returns taken from them? And why would these companies continue to invest in projects when the federal government is just going to say, well, you made too much money, we're going to take it now?
That was the wife bringing me a ranch water, by the way.
Oh, well, cheers to that. That's awesome, man. I have no expectations of my wife walking in here with a ranch water, because if she did, she would have a screaming child, and she would probably hand me both, and then the broadcast would be over shortly thereafter.
or one but not the other, right?
Yeah, that actually is shit. That's definitely how that would play out. I don't know. I just keep coming back to the whole Wall Street is now, all of these banks have decided, we're no longer investing in fossil fuels. That's fine. I don't know
Yeah,
if I
that's
sent.
that's fine because if if commodity prices support it, and they will, because supply is probably the biggest driver in commodity prices, then the capital can come organically. But if you're taxed, I mean, I'm not trying to harp on that, but like if the capital will come organically, it doesn't matter what the fucking tax policy is, right? Retained earnings are not necessarily taxable, and those type of things. But like and if the industry can't pay for itself to sustain itself, if it needs outside capital, then like it's a welfare industry at that point, right?
Well, I feel like there's also the cyclical ups and downs where there are times where the industry would need more capital, and there, when you're trying to say we need more production for the next 5 to 10 years, we need to increase production. You need more capital to increase production because it's expensive as fuck to drill all these wells now. I don't think that that's something that can be done off of just cash flow because of decline curves. And the money that you spent, 10 million, $20 million a well on, 6 or 7 years ago is not producing the same amount today that it was when it was initially brought online. And I think that everybody wishes that those wells were brought online today as opposed to, 7 years ago.
Yeah, but if they weren't on 7 years ago, then there wouldn't have been the cash flow to just keep the lights on, right?
Yeah.
We were struggling 7 years ago, right? We were.
This is an issue that I think we go through the cycles of, the problem was the cash incinerator machine, when that got turned on with, increased production at all costs. There were other aspects that were involved, taking market share, stuff like that, which, the ultimate result was Russia and Saudi Arabia, destroying the oil and gas industry in an attempt to destroy, shale producers. And I think that there were some mixed successes and huge losses associated with that. But in the end, I think that we do need access to capital.
Yeah.
I don't think that the oil and gas industry, because not everybody is Exxon or Chevron, and not everybody has the reserves and assets to be able to leverage one against the other. And when you're talking about a situation that you need to increase production, the majors are going to, take their sweet ass time. They're all investing in wind and solar and carbon neutral and all of that shit now. You're really asking like the small to medium operators, most of which are going to be privately owned. You're asking them, hey, can you guys go out and take a huge fucking gamble on your kids, college fund to go drill more wells?
No.
I think most of those people are saying no.
Yeah.
Because the messaging is wrong. If they could go and they could get financial backing to do these projects without being out of pocket so much, I think maybe you would have a different situation. But Wall Street has kind of said, hey, we're not ever going to be supporting fossil fuels anymore. We'll give everything we have to support renewables. you've got a problem, because a lot of these producers that are going to be out there, you know, drilling wells and, you know, possibly finding more productive zones or areas of known formations where it might not be tier 1 acreage, but, you know, maybe nobody ever bothered to drill that far north or that far south into that formation. Um, I mean, you're really, like, you have to support the kind of, you know, maybe it's a pseudo wildcat situation, and those people need capital to be able to do that. Without capital, those wells aren't going to get drilled. We're going to leave it in the ground. And that's fine if you want to leave it in the ground, but also don't ask people to produce more, you know?
Yeah, and that is, since the beginning of this industry, that is how this industry's been funded, is you know, is glorified prospecting, and that is how it's going to continue to be funded. What my idea was, you know, on the organic growth, is kind of a pie in the sky deal, and I think you're right. That's not going to happen. I think it could, but I just don't think, you know, it would take a complete transformation of how well, it would take participation from you know, industry wide and internationally, right?
Right.
And it would, you know, the scenario that I said would leave us more susceptible to Russia and Saudi Arabia and whoever else, you know, anybody else that hates us, because they could just jack the production up or down as they see fit to manipulate the system. I said, now organic growth and what I'm suggesting, I think um, brings the most money back to shareholders, to employees, to, you know, and probably even cost a little bit less to the consumer, because, you know, because the financing is a lot simpler that way. But it's just never going to happen.
I mean, you're talking about like having Robinhood where you could like go invest in, you know, somebody's oil prospect, right? Basically. So like, you know, you get
Well,
10,000 people to invest $10,000 and you go out and you fucking drill a well.
there's plenty of people that do that, right? I mean, you could, you know,
There are. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just saying that, like, the retail availability of those opportunities is never going to happen.
Yeah, and then right now, like if I wanted, you know, pick a producer. If I wanted to go invest in Centennial or Devon or somebody like that that says, "Hey, we're fixing to increase our production in, or Continental or something like that," Continental says we're gonna increase production in Oklahoma, Permian Basin, and North Dakota, and any retail person's like, "Well, those are great oil plays, and I want to get into this, and so I'm gonna go after Continental." Or I'm gonna buy 1,000 shares of Continental. Like that's more or less what I'm going at. I mean, it's unless you're dealing with a Scott or Jay or somebody like that, you're not going to get in on the oil company level. And even if you do, those are really fucking risky.
Right. So again, I'm coming back to that. That's not really the majors. They're not going to turn around. Like turning a, you know, billion-dollar company, turning the rudder is a slow process on shit like that. And the prevailing winds are not headed towards more production for any of those companies. So you're really trying to ask for more people to go out there and risk their capital and livelihood on the chance that next year people don't change their mind and say, you know, get bent, we're shutting in all of your production, you know.
Yeah, or we shut the world economy down for Ebola, or, you know, bear flu or something.
Yeah, bear flu's a good one. Haven't heard that one. I don't know. I don't think that there's a easy solution to the problem, but I think that most of the current solutions that we have are not moving in the right direction.
I mean, they're moving in the direction of the commodity prices going up, right?
And everybody keeps saying the best cure for high oil prices is high oil prices, but at the same time, how the fuck are you going to power the world?
I don't think we have
Because
high oil prices right now.
we have maybe appropriately priced oil prices right now. It is amazing to me that people think that oil is not going to continue to increase in price, and that somehow if oil hits, you know, $200 or $300 or whatever, that that's going to create a situation where everybody's going to switch to renewable fuels or whatever. Well, renewable fuels can't actually drive your vehicle, and you can't make steel out of renewable fuels and shit like that, because the current situation, the way we have it, a lot of these processes, you can't fucking mine cobalt and lithium and everything else that you need for your electric vehicle. You can't make rubber and plastic and everything. We don't have the industrial or manufacturing capabilities to get rid of fossil fuels for any of those things yet. And if investment in further production of fossil fuels continues to be stifled, the price will continue to go up. And again, this is a necessity of life. So what the fuck is anybody else going to do?
Yeah, and we know this is cyclical, and in each cycle, like it always repeats, but not exactly the same, right? Where are we at in the cycle? Are we 2003? Are we 2005? I don't think
everybody at this point in time is trying not to be part of the cycle. Everybody is sitting on their hands saying, we're going to see how this plays out. And if tomorrow we wake up and all of the majors and everybody say, hey, we're going to start increasing production, OPEC says, hey, we're increasing production and everything, boom, we know we're about to bust. But I don't think that anyone is looking at this current situation and thinking, we have a moral obligation to bust our industry again.
Yeah, but when that does happen, especially if it happens in the United States, as you know, as employees, like we can't stop it, but you know, we can start positioning ourselves to get ready for it. And also, when those announcements do happen, like, hey, we're going to increase production, well, there's an opportunity to increase your income right there. As soon as that happens, it's like, all right, I'm now more valuable, and
Right.
they're fixing to they are going to blow a lot of money, and I need to get as much of that money as I can.
Yeah, before I go work for a fucking solar farm.
Right.
Which, I mean, maybe I need to learn how to do electrical engineering. I don't know. Is Permian Landman still in the chat? Or is it the artist formerly known as Permian Landman? I think we lost him. Well, my father-in-law was just in here rummaging around in the barn and kind of looking at me like maybe I need to get back to the ranch house at some point in the near future. So
yeah, my wife's come out here twice, and while I appreciate the drink,
you're
if I
somewhat
sit out here
suspicious.
yeah, if I sit out here and drink this and ask for another one by text, That's not going to be good for any of us.
Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming on, and I'd like to continue to talk about all of this because this is interesting stuff, and I think it affects. I think more people are realizing how much it affects them.
Yeah, and let's take some notes, and then I mean we can collaborate on the back end. But like, there's some really good talking points. We talk about a bunch of stuff, but there's some really good stuff we can dive down on. But I think hitting the old cliches is not going to be productive for anybody. But like there is some really interesting talks, and some of it's just going to be how we as field folks, and corporate folks and whoever, like just regular old employees and retail investors of these things, position ourselves to come out as best as we can. I mean, I don't know that anybody ever comes out really on top because there's a lot of unexpected things that happen during the upcycle and the down curve, right?
But I don't think that anybody should be afraid of telling their story because, you have no idea how that story might affect someone who's at a completely different place in life. And that's kind of what Landman Life has always been about, is telling stories. And if somebody wants to, have an avenue to, maybe tell their story and share some of the knowledge and experience that they have, I'm always going to support that. So,
Yep.
hopefully we can kind of get back on track at some point this year and start moving forward on that because, I would certainly like to share more of my experience and everything. I just don't have the fucking time right now.
Yeah. There's quite a few folks out there, right? I mean, the guys in Tulsa are pretty interesting cats. If you could, if they'll actually tell their story,
Yeah.
they're pretty neat guys too, right?
Yeah. Well, thanks for hopping on, and I will review everything and take some notes and send y'all some stuff next week so that I guess, we have Easter next week, so I don't know. We'll talk
Yeah.
about it.
2 weeks maybe.
Yeah. Sounds good, man.